and preserve every right of every human being in the Gambia. We ask you to bless us, enlighten the ideas that we may suggest and deliberate here, that will be part of the fabric of our nation, and protect our nation from all evil and from all leaders that may intend to harm our country. We ask you to bless all those that are here, that they may get back to their destinations in peace. This we ask through Christ our Lord. Amen. Father, Son,
ربنا إننا آمنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وقنا عذاب النار ربنا أخرجنا من هذه القرية ظالم أهلها واجعل لنا من لدنك وليا واجعل لنا من لدنك نصيرا رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة من ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء ربنا اغفر لوالدي والمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب يا أيها الذين آمنوا استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة إن الله مع الصابرين ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Now I would like to introduce, I promise we'll go by the schedule. I now want to introduce our able-bodied chairwoman, the social leader of our Atlanta community. We have seen very dynamic changes since she took office. And I can stand here all evening saying her accolades. Without further ado, Hadi Diallo Coulibaly, please.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Good evening and welcome. I'm going to try to keep it brief and short so we can get to the nitty-gritties here. We're all here for a purpose, and I'm going to say welcome, the commission, and thank you for picking up Atlanta as one of the cities that, to help bring this turning point in our lives. I think I speak for a lot of young people if I say, in my adult life, this is the first one that I would experience, and I want to make it as historical as possible. And I thank all the leaders that have set the path for us to make sure that Atlanta is recognized as one of the pioneers of change in the diaspora. So thank yourselves, the Atlanta community, and welcome to this event. One thing I want to say is that, like the ambassador had said, make sure you put all other qualms aside and let's be practical. No judgments, and let's be more productive today than we've ever been in our lives. This is going to determine the future of many, including my future and the little babies that I'm just now brought into this world and raising. And as we say that, and I hope the commission also considers the fact that after we make all these decisions, that they're mandated to transcribe our opinions, that they also make sure that we are able, the next time around, to be able to vote from the diaspora and make a change.
Thank you so much, Hadi. I told you guys, she's dynamic. She's really taking this community to very, very great strides. But before I bring the chairman on, if I could get the cameras to face me, because this is very important. We have over 10,000 Gambians in Atlanta. And there is a young lady here, my princess, today is her birthday. She had to stop everything and come attend this meeting. So it's no reason why you at home shouldn't be here. In fact, please, if you would kindly stand up, let everybody wish you a happy birthday. Thank you. I want to present to you our Honorable Justice Chairman S. Jallo. Every Gambian knows Justice Jallo. Of course, he's the chairman of the commission. Next is our own Ami Jufko.
my brother, Dr. Melvin George, Yankuba Mandel. He's the youth commissioner, you can tell. Salimata Toure, is Toure. And of course, Gay Sol. And you can't do without the secretary of the commission, Mr. Omar Joe, at the time. Again, we welcome you guys to the greatest city in the Southeast, the capital of the diaspora, the second capital of Gambia, Atlanta. Without further ado, I would pass it on to our Honorable Ambassador. But before I pass it on, I just want to commend our embassy in the United States. They've been very cordial and serviceable to us, the citizens. I really want to thank him. I mean, ambassadors generations before him have worked very well with our communities. And I want to thank him on behalf of the ambassador. Please.
Thank you very much, our able moderator, for the kind introduction. The Chairman, Constitutional Review Commission, Right Honorable Justice John Ojalo, and the members of the delegation, Her Excellency Ambassador Alsop, I know you all know her. She served as Ambassador of the America to the Republic of the Gambia up to her retirement. Actually, she oversaw our transition. And this lady is a true friend of the Gambia. Honorable Honorary Council Designate, Georgia, Mr. Habib Bai. Distinguished leaders of our community, there are quite a number here. Can't call all of them. Fellow Gambians, friends of the Gambia, members of the media fraternity, ladies and gentlemen, you are all welcome to this important national dialogue with the CRC. Today is another historic day, another day of fulfillment. But more importantly, today is a day of great expectations. Essentially, there is nothing more glorious than being called upon to participate in the grafting of a new future of one's country. That is in the drafting of a new constitution. This is a huge and rare honor, and in fact, a lifetime experience. So today is your turn. This great community of Georgia, for you to hold this important national conversation with the drafters of our constitution. But I would like to remind you that we were here before. This will be our third constitution in under 2 generations. That is not a remarkable record for any nation in terms of the longevity of constitutions. Constitutions are designed to last not the lifetime of a government, but to serve generations upon generations. So we need to reverse this trend. And I think this time around we'll get it right. And how do we do this? I think we are already on the right track. Because focus group meetings like this, working together as one nation, and putting our ideas and efforts together through a transparent and all-inclusive process, so that we can deliver a constitution that will be fit for purpose, one that will stand the litmus test of time. And I know we can do it, and we must do it for ourselves and for our posterity. This is important. And I think the time is now that we succeed in this, because the circumstances have never been so favorable. Just take a look at our populations, both at home and abroad. Everyone is fired up. The political awareness and enthusiasm is extremely high. Citizen engagement and responsiveness to the affairs of the nation has never been stronger. So we need to harness this massive energy. That energy is even palpable right here in this hall, so that together we deliver a constitution that will work for us for now and for the foreseeable future. And one of the reasons I am convinced that we'll get this right is the decision by the authorities to include you, the members of the Gambian diaspora, for the first time to take part in this historic process. This is significant because I know you have the experience, the expertise, and the exposure to contribute meaningfully to this important process. Particularly those of you who live in the US. Most of you have lived and benefited directly or indirectly from the opportunities provided by the US stable constitution. So you must share your valuable suggestions and ideas with this commission. This is important. So I challenge all of you, including myself, to come out with bold ideas and bold opinions and suggestions that will guide this commission to deliver a constitution that will properly delineate and appropriately balance our three arms of government so that they work independently but smoothly and harmoniously, avoiding logjams. But also for the Commission to be able to ensure that the checks and balances are insulated in our Constitution to the extent that our institutions will be not only strengthened but empowered and work transparently with the highest degree of accountability in the best interest of our nation. So there is a lot at stake today. Let me also sound a word of caution here. I want us to try and resist the temptations of focusing on the parochial considerations for short-term gains in this important process. Let's forget about the self for the time being, or a group, or a region in the Gambia, or a party, or a party leader. This is not a partisan political process. If we do that, that will be a recipe for us to come back here very soon and hold another conference to write another constitution. And I don't think anyone in this room wants us to go by that route anymore. So let's look beyond the short-term gains. Let's come up with ideas and opinions that's best for our country and that can serve us for generations and generations to come. This is important. And I think we will do our best to contribute here in a more meaningful way. I am also quite optimistic that this time we'll get this right. And I'm not alone in this. When I take a look at the membership of this particular commission that we are facing today, these members have been carefully selected based on well-established track records and wealth of experience. These are men and women with caliber and timber, with the highest level of integrity, with determination, and love for country. So I have no doubt in my mind, and I'm sure I share this opinion with quite a number of Gambians, that at the end of this exercise, Justice Jallow and his commission will deliver for us a 21st century constitution that will, among other things, take into account our values, our history, our culture, our uniqueness as a people, our land and its resources, our water and its resources, our flora and fauna, and I always say even our birds and our airspace. And I have no doubt that they will do that, being properly guided by you and other multitude of Gambians across the world and in the Gambia. Failure and short-termism is no longer an option for us in this process. So with those two remarks, I would like to once again welcome all of you and thank you for coming in these massive numbers. I am not surprised. I've been here twice before. I know this is a community that works well and that has the interest of the country, like all other communities, but this is special. So I look forward to a very exciting night. And with those few remarks, I yield the floor to the chairman. Thank you for your kind listening.
Thank you very much, our dear moderator Habib, and thank you for kindly agreeing to moderate this session. And as far as this session goes, you are the boss, not me. I would like to recognize Ambassador, His Excellency Mr. Fadera, and to thank him for his kind words and also for still keeping his promise since we came to the U.S., starting in Seattle. He's been with us and he's promised to be with us right until we finish our engagement here in the U.S. So Ambassador, once again, thank you very much for being so studious. I would also recognize the community leaders of Gambians in Atlanta and the areas surrounding Atlanta. In particular, Madam Hadi Jallow Kubali, for those very brief and excellent points, because they go a long way in terms of assisting this process insofar as the constitutional review process is concerned. And finally, to thank all of you compatriots, all of you Gambians, thank you so much, so very, very much for coming out in your large numbers. I can see, and I see people still streaming in, and that's something really that speaks to testimony of your interest and acknowledgement of the value of this process we are engaging. I should also, last but certainly not the least, also like to acknowledge the former U.S. Ambassador to the Gambia, Madam Alsop, who I had the privilege of meeting at the inception of the work of the Constitutional Review Commission, and I echo the words of the Ambassador that she's been a sterling steward in terms of looking after the interests of the Gambia, and I think her presence here is testimony to that. So, Madam Ambassador, thank you. Thank you very much. The purpose of the work of the CRC is essentially twofold. One is to review the existing constitution, that's the 1997 constitution, and with a view to writing a new one. And the second one is to prepare a report in relation to that new constitution. In terms of going about this process, the Constitutional Review Commission Act, which establishes the CRC, establishes certain guidelines under Section 6 of that Act. And we are guided in that process. And one of those guiding principles requires us to consult with the Gambian diaspora to the extent feasible. It hasn't indicated in what form that should happen. But having commenced the public consultation process back home in November of last year, whereby we visited 106 communities and interfaced directly with members of our community, we thought that we should not do any less with Gambians overseas. We thought that, yes, there are different modalities we could employ to engage you, including having the use of technology, but it never really is the same. I think if we all recognize it never really is the same. And since we've embarked on this process, we've been vindicated in that in that choice in terms of how we engage Gambians abroad. So thank you all very much for coming, and we hope that this will be a very interactive session between yourselves and us. There are 11 commissioners, there are only 6 of us present here. The other half was dealing with the with our European compatriots, and they just completed that process I believe earlier this week or the last week. So thank you once again. What we hope to do here is to essentially sit down and listen to you. And how that is going to operate is this. We will introduce topics. We have 14 topics altogether. We will introduce the topics one after the other. And with the introduction of each topic, we will ask a series of questions on which we want you to address your minds. So when you come to respond, we will really appreciate if you could address those specific issues. They will be important to guide us in making a determination ultimately as to what really constitutes the wishes and aspirations of the Gambian people. And here we are not making any distinction whatsoever between Gambians in the Gambia and Gambians outside of the Gambia. We want the Gambian, we see Gambia. And I think that is important for us. So it would be very important if you could concentrate on the questions we ask. We are, however, not limiting you to those questions. If there are any other issues in relation to any particular topic we present that you feel you need guidance on, or you think is important to be considered as part of this constitutional review process, then you are free to do that, to raise that point so that we can record it and address it. Whatever is said here, we will record it. All of us, are required to take down notes and make sure that nothing is lost during this dialogue. What also will happen is that we will expect that when you come to present, you state your name, that's your full name, and unless you are a Jola or Serere who can't remember where he or she came from in the Gambia, we will really appreciate if you could state where you came from in the Gambia. It will be important for this process as well. What will happen eventually is that Once we finish with this consultation process, we will sit down and put all the views and opinions together. That process has actually started, beginning from where we started back home, meeting with the stakeholders, and a number of you and a number of Gambians generally have actually submitted written opinions in terms of assisting this process. So all of those things are being put together and collated, and they will be analyzed and then put into the relevant segments. So that ultimately we can determine what constitutes the wishes and aspirations of the Gambian people. In addition to that, it is also important to note that the Gambia is a party to different treaties, and we will take those treaties into account as well, because as a nation state, we have obligations in relation to those treaties, and we will take those into account as well. We will also take into account what constitutes international best practice, but put that in the Gambian context and see what really fits in. And as has already been indicated, we will also take into account the norms and values of the Gambian people as a community. We think that is important. So it's quite a number of considerations that will be taken into account in this process. Once we have drafted the new constitution, we have endeavored, and it's in our action plan, to roll the first draft out. That means the first draft and the first draft of the Constitution and the first draft report will be published for all Gambians to see what we have provided in the new Constitution coming out of the public consultations and our research and other work assignments. Then we will invite opinions on the draft new Constitution, including the report itself, before we proceed on to finalize the draft Constitution. Once that is done, then the law requires that we hand the draft Constitution and the draft and the report to His Excellency the President of the Republic. In tandem with that, the law also enables us to publish the same draft Constitution and the report on the same day, so that Gambians will see what the real final product is. And thereafter, obviously, the mandate of the CRC comes to an end, except for the fact that we remain in office in the event that parliamentarians require us to interface with them in relation to the draft new constitution. But then, going forward, it will be the responsibility of the executive to prepare a bill to take the draft constitution to parliament, where we expect that it will be endorsed before being referred to a referendum. So I hope everybody is clear as to the process. And we have an 18-month period to do this, beginning from June of last year. That means by the end of November this year, we should be finished with this process. We are on target for now. We hope we will continue to be on target. That's our desire, because we all have our various assignments that we're really eager to get back to. There is provision, nevertheless, in the law for an extension of 6 months. We hope we never have to utilize that extension, but we'll see how things evolve going forward. So with those words, I just wish once again to thank you all for coming, and to just reiterate the point that this is not about politics, this is about national development, and we are not doing this for ourselves. Here today, we are doing this for future generations of Gambians yet unborn. So we must always bear that in mind. Let's approach the topics and the various issues from a very objective perspective. Leave the politics out, because the politics tends to be partisan. Then we also need to ensure that we avoid name calling to the extent possible, because when you call names, that evokes reaction, and we want to avoid engaging in an unnecessary debate here. Outside of that, I think everything should go smoothly. We have had very smooth engagements thus far, and Atlanta having been declared the second capital of the Gambia just a while ago. I didn't know that this right. Thank you very much. I'm not sure I'd write that in the Constitution, but we'll see how that goes. But it's good to know that. And we can see why you said that. I mean, you just see the large numbers here. And I can see really that this has been the largest so far since we've been in the years. And the numbers continue to increase. You know, Bankamane promised me yesterday that Taklaka was going to beat every state we've been to. I don't know about New York yet, but I can say thus far you've done very well, and thank you very much for that. So with those words, once again, welcome and thank you very kindly.
The brief times that I've interacted with the commissioner since they've been here, I'm very impressed, and I have a lot of hope that this document, after it's ready and approved, we will have a jewel. They are very humble people, very open people, and that's what we need as Gambians. I mean, these laws are very important. Since the constitutions have been changed over, like the ambassador said, the United States have had their constitution for now over 300 years, and it's been working for them. So we pray that this one lasts forever and ever, and we don't ever have to meet like this again to do another one. Now, I'm holding my hand at the fast speed button. Now, if I'm not mistaken, that's my boss right here. Okay, the deliberations. You do that, Chairman. Okay.
All right, we get into the discussions now. And like I said, we have 14 topics to cover. And obviously some are lengthy, some not so lengthy, but each one of them having equal importance. The first topic we want to start on, and I'll take you through that discussion, is on citizenship. We all know citizenship is a child issue, but very critical, and there are difficult issues involved in it as well. But we need to confront these difficult issues, because that's the only way we can really build a constitution that lasts for generations yet to come. In terms of citizenship, perhaps I would first like to outline to you what the current constitution provides. There are 4 types of citizens outlined in the 1997 constitution. The first is citizenship by birth. The second is citizenship by descent. The third is citizenship acquired through naturalization. And the fourth is citizenship acquired through registration. And I'll explain each one of these in detail. In the case of citizenship by birth, if your father or mother, it could be both of them, but either of them, is a Gambian citizen, and the child is born in the Gambia, that child is a Gambian citizen by birth. That's a very simple, straightforward one. Citizenship by descent is where both or either of your parents, it doesn't have to be both, but either of your parents is a Gambian, and the child is born outside of the Gambia. That child is a citizen of the Gambia by descent. That's the second category. The third category is naturalization. If a mother and a father have a child in the Gambia, but the parents are non-Gambian, no, I'm going ahead of myself. The naturalization is where a non-Gambian who is resident in the Gambia for a period of 15 years is of good character, has capacity, law-abiding. They have all those qualifications outlined in the Constitution. If the person has lived in the Gambia for 15 or more years, that person has the opportunity to apply under the law to be naturalized as a citizen of the Gambia. That's 15 years. The fourth one is where a person who is non-Gambian, man or woman, is married to a Gambian and lives in the Gambia for a period of 7 years, that is ordinarily resident in the Gambia for a period of 7 years. the law allows that person, man or woman who is married to the Gambia, to apply to be registered as a citizen of the Gambia. That's the fourth category. However, if a child is born in the Gambia of parents, neither of whom is a Gambian citizen, that child does not necessarily become a Gambian. That's the current status of the law. Irrespective of how long the parents have lived in the Gambia, so long as they have not applied to be naturalized or they have not qualified through a registration process, the child born of them does not necessarily qualify as a Gambian. The other scenario is where you have a situation where that same person, the same child born in the Gambia of parents that are not Gambian goes through the school system, knows no other place but the Gambia. Obviously, that's where the questions will arise as to what happens to that person. Now, I want to ask you the following questions, and I want you to address your minds to it. Unless somebody has a specific issue with the definition of Gambian citizen by birth or descent, our view is to maintain that in the new constitution. If you're a Gambian born by birth or by descent, that is preserved in the new constitution. The questions there will relate to the other categories. For naturalization is 15 years. What do you think of the 15 years? Is that enough? And should stay where it is? Or is it too long and we need to reduce it? Or is not sufficiently enough, we need to increase it, and by how many years? You tell us your opinions on that. The second scenario is similar to that. For registration, in order to qualify, if you are married to a Gambian as a non-Gambian, the law says after 7 years you can apply to become a registered citizen. The question is, are we okay with the 7 years? Or should we reduce the 7 years or increase the 7 years? And then we need to let us know if it has to be taken up or brought down by how many years. That is important. The other question I have for you relates to what I said earlier. A child that is born in the Gambia of non-Gambian parents knows no other country, but the Gambia has gone through the school system, everything within the Gambia. Should the new constitution recognize that child as a citizen of the Gambia? Or should that child be considered in a different context instead of having that automatic right to citizenship? We would want your opinions on that. The last question I have is a situation where a child is found in the Gambia, but the parents of the child are unknown. And we have treaties to that effect. That child that is found in our country, parents not known, no father, no mother. Should that child be granted citizenship? Or should we treat that child in a different way, and how differently? So in essence, these are the questions I have for you on citizenship. So we will now invite you to let us know your opinions and also give us guidance in terms of where you think we should be going on this subject with respect to the new constitution. Thank you very much. Earlier is where you are a Gambian and you acquire dual nationality. You are a Gambian, for example, you come to the US, you acquire US citizenship. Do you lose your Gambian citizenship? The answer is no. All right, there is section 12A under the current constitution which allows dual nationality. So you could retain a Gambian citizenship and retain a US citizenship. The law allows for that to happen. So I just thought I needed to make that clear. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, and thank you all. With regards to the citizenship by Kenyan, Pastor Pujabi from Kafuka. Yes. Yeah, no, I'm going to deal with the full as when I'm done. citizenship, I wanted to answer share my opinion with regards to citizenship, with regards to a child that is, I forgot the rest of the one, but most importantly, the one that I just remember is the one that, for instance, no father, no mother, but found in the Gambia. Obviously, the fact that we cannot determine whether the parents, he or her parents are Gambians or not, should naturally be awarded citizenship, given the benefit of that. And the other one was, the other two questions that you said were not settled because it was loaded. Can you repeat that, sir? In terms of citizenship by naturalization, I would suggest that the 15 years is too long. I would suggest that we reduce it to 10 years. I mean, putting myself in the United States, if we were to wait for 15 years, most of us would have gone back home. I mean, waiting for that long before you get there. So I would suggest it reduced to 10 years. And then if you are married to a Gambian, instead of 7 years, I would suggest we reduce it to 3 years or 5 years at most. That would be my. Thank you.
Right here. By the way, before I start to comment on, the gentleman with the controls there, that's the wife. I mean, again, he has given the pro bono discount for the event. So I just want to make that clear. These are community people working for our community, so we have to make sure, we know that.
Good afternoon. My name is Isaac Jallo, and I'm from Serekunda Baptist. I want to talk about I just want to give my opinion about the naturalization. This is very dear to me. My parents naturalized very, very, very early on. So I'm thinking that the 15 years is too much. If you have Gambians non-Gambians that live in the Gambia, are working, hard-working Gambians, no criminal background, nothing, I would suggest 5 years at least. Because I have to say, I'm lucky my parents recognized that very early and naturalized very, very early on. Because it has helped me along the way. When I go apply for stuff, I'm always asked to bring my parents' naturalization papers. Always. And if they hadn't had the good mind to do that, I might not have been a Gambian, even though I was born in the Gambia, went to school there. So I think 5 years is okay.
Hello, good afternoon, good evening. Umi Ambrose, born in Banjul, molded in Tansan. I will have to say that. On the citizenship, I want to talk about the one that the parents are not Gambians, but they live in Gambia and they have a child in Gambia. The child did not choose to be born there. So I believe the child should be Gambian, because that's where he or she is born. That is one, I guess you have that. I hope I didn't speak too fast. Okay. The other one is the 15 years, I believe, with no records. It should be get down to about 7 years. That's my guess. And the one that is from 7 years, I would prefer it to be cut down to 3 years. Thank you.
I'm so sorry. Usman Majan.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and the rest of the audience. My name is Usman Manjan. I'm from Yildu. And
My contribution towards the question about citizenship is to echo the fact that the child who was born in the Gambia to non-Gambian parents should automatically be a citizen, because it is not his or her choice to be born in Gambia. And also, with those parents, it would be ideal to know their residential status in the country. Some people will come, and this is the fact that the majority of some of these parents are illiterates. They don't know what the law says when it comes to citizenship requirements, and I think there should be some civic education to educate these migrants to the country to know what the law says as to how to acquire Gambian citizenship, to make things pretty much easier. And the other clauses that pertaining to citizenship, again, I think 15 years is a little bit too long. It could be reduced down to 10 years. And of course, the 7-year residential should be nothing more than 5 years at the most, if that would be something ideal for citizenship. And I'm happy that the other thing is, even though attaining a citizenship from another country doesn't make us lose our Gambian citizenship, there should be some opportunities for those Gambians to have full equal opportunities as the Gambians resident in the Gambia should have in the day-to-day running of our government, and not to be segregated as foreigners, because we're never going to be foreigners, we're going to be Gambians no matter where we are. Thank you.
Mr. Myla Ture flew all the way from Rhode Island to attend this. So,
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Myla Ture and I'm originally from Banana. Today is July 4th. It is no accident that we're here in Atlanta. July 4th is America's Independence Day. Mr. Ambassador, you touched on something that is very, very important, and I want to touch on that real briefly before I go and answer the questions, which is, we don't want to do this again. You are absolutely right. The United States Constitution has only 27 amendments. The first 10 comprise of the Bill of Rights, and those were in 1791. America became independent in 1776. That's 241 years. One constitution. Gambia, 50-something, 3. Thank you for bringing that up. We need to learn, guys, we need to learn. We can be better, and we shall be better from here. No wonder we are here, home of the brave, land of the free. Yes, we want that too. Answer to the questions that were asked. I want to take the emotions out of it, because when somebody becomes a citizen, there are certain things that are attached to it, and we need to be careful the way that we answer the questions. Here in the United States, there are certain areas I could not have visited had I not been a citizen. Sensitive government documents I cannot lay my hands on. I work for a defense contractor, and I know about how these things go. It is important for us to keep that at the back of our minds. We don't just grant citizenship just because we are married to a Gambian. The questions become, and I don't know what the legalities are, please indulge me if you may. If you are an American and married to a Gambian, does the same criteria hold as if you are married to a Gambian? Do you have to be a resident of Gambia for an amount of time or not? I don't know that. But on face value, please go ahead. Let me answer that question quickly. The law says you have to be ordinarily a resident in the Gambia for a period of 7 years or more. And in fact, with the language of the Constitution, it's for a period of not less than 7 years. That's what it's about. Fantastic, thank you. And these are important things that we need to ask, because individuals that we are going to enforce, keep in mind that spying is still a way of living in the world. People need to know what are our state secrets, so we need to be careful about those as we answer the question. To answer the question, 7 years married to a Gambian citizen, I would say if the individual lives in the Gambia with the wife, as in many cases here in the States and other places, I would suggest that 5 years would be adequate. Citizenship by birth, a child birth Again, thank you, Umi Andrews. I believe that somebody born in the country is entitled to citizenship. Naturalization, 15 years, is it okay or not? I believe if you meet all the requirements, it should be okay that you become a citizen within 5 years. And again, it has to do with living, if we meet all the criteria that is required of you. A child born in the Gambia is not individual or citizen or not. A child found, this is a very tough one, emotional, but I'll take that out of the way. A child found not knowing, I believe that individual could be granted citizenship depending on the circumstances. There are some things that we need to put into consideration. But looking at it at face value, we don't know mom, we don't know dad. It's a really suspicious situation that we need to look into. That child could be processed through other systems. I'm not saying automatically grant a child a citizenship. A child, there's an age limit, and I don't know where we define, where we cut off the line. Is it 18 years?
Yep.
All right, this child is 17 and a half, and we found him somewhere. Those are things that we need to consider. I would say I'll leave that up to somebody else to answer. Dual citizenship, that is appreciated. I believe those are all that I can answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Habib. Thank you, Commissioners. Musa Jen from Kowdamimai, capital of CRR. I just want to deal with a couple of issues. One has to do with dual citizenship. And anytime I hear that, I don't want dual citizen to be a citizenship with asterisk. And as we go along dealing with other issues, we just want to be a citizen, just like anybody in Kamfenda or Sukukondi or Sukukova. That's one thing. The other issue has something to do with a child born in the Gambia. I do believe in what I call the umbilical cord consideration. The moment you're born in the Gambia, following Suso Tubaki, you should be a Gambian, no question asked. It will definitely be something we need to do that. The other issue has something to do with the parents, and they want to become a Gambian. I don't think they need to give up their citizenship from another country. Because there was no way I would give up my citizenship from the Gambia in order to become a citizenship here. Again, we are looking at Gambia, a country of 2 million. If we ever going to remain viable in the next 50 years, we should be in the business of addition and not in the business of subtraction. Yes, we need to be careful. Yes, spying like one of our colleagues has indicated. But if Gambia is going to be viable, if Gambia is going to be viable, remember since independence, Brother Abi, the mic. There was a talk that they call us the improbable nation. They didn't think we could remain viable. We are still here. But if you go to the provinces and you ask people, they will tell you, maybe that improbability is still here. I think the business of addition and not subtraction is bringing as many as possible to remain viable. Thank you very much.
Before Sola takes the mic, Sola is a host in one of our local radio stations, and Sola was very kind enough to allow us an interview to publicize the event. So I just want to say that again, our Gambian empowerment, Sola, you know what to do, just face the crowd. Here, right here.
Thank you.
Got the camera right there.
Oh, okay. Good evening, and Mr. Chairman, and this distinguished partner, would like to say thank you very much for taking the time out to come talk to us about this very important issue. In terms of the new constitution, I believe that children born in the Gambia should automatically be Gambian citizens, regardless of both parents being non-Gambian. We should reduce the process, the application process from 7 years to 3 years for non-Gambians that are married to Gambians. As long as they're in good standing, that means they haven't any kind of criminal record and they're doing what is right by Gambia. And also dual citizen. We call ourselves dual citizen, but when we want to go to Gambia, they ask us to get a visa. We are dual citizens and we have an American passport. You should be able to go because the passport indicates that your country of origin is the Gambia. So when you get to the airport, you have to fight tooth and nail to get through. So I think you guys have to look at that, because since the chairman indicated that we have dual citizenship, they have to make sure that when you carry your American passport, you should not be asked for visa.
Can I address that before you move on? I think we need to look at the state of the law when it comes to traveling. If you are a Gambian and you are a U.S. citizen as well, you acquire U.S. citizen. You acquire U.S. citizenship, not to stop you from acquiring a Gambian passport. When you go to the border and you present a U.S. citizen, on the face of it, you are not Gambian, irrespective of what is written on the passport. I think we need to be very clear on this. So always it's a good thing if you're a Gambian, acquire a Gambian passport. You know, if you facilitate your travel. I just feel I needed to make that clear.
Thank you, sir. Now, in terms of the dual citizenship that we just talked about, and that's for the Gambians that naturalize and are not given dual citizenship, they have to lose their country of origin. I believe they should be allowed to maintain the country of origin and, of course, become citizens of the Gambia at the same time, because they live in the Gambia and they are from another country. Thank you.
All right. If you can move quickly to fundamental rights and freedoms, and I intend to be brief here, because we all know fully well what fundamental rights and freedoms are. You know, the usual thing, freedom of speech, of assembly, of association, etc., etc. But we want to address and invite your opinions on two specific areas. The first is the death penalty. And the question there is, as we all are aware, the death penalty is still good law in the Gambia, irrespective of whether it is being enforced or otherwise. The question therefore is, should we continue to uphold the death penalty under our laws? So you might want to address that. The second area relates to what we call the social and economic rights. These are the rights that you would find in the current constitution. There is a specific provision or chapter relating to what is referred to as the principles of state policy or something like that. And they are not enforceable. In other words, they are not justiciable. These are just rights and policies that are outlined under the Constitution, encouraging the government to uphold them. And some of these relate to health care, right of access to health care, education, clean environment, decent housing, and so on and so forth. The questions we want to ask now is, when we consider education, for instance, the current constitution provides the right to education, to free education, but only to the basic level. That means up to grade 9. That's what the current constitution provides. What do you think should be done in the new constitution? Should we maintain that, or should we increase that to free secondary education? Or should it still go to tertiary level, including university? We would want your opinion on that. Similarly, with respect to healthcare, and here we're dealing more with access to healthcare. Are we concerned, or should we make it a right that every Gambian has a right to healthcare or to access healthcare? And what kind of healthcare are we talking about? Comprehensive or basic or primary healthcare? These are your opinions. I'm sure there are experts amongst us here who can guide us better in that particular regard. Similarly, with regard to decent housing, should it be the state's responsibility to afford every Gambian decent housing? Or should the state merely provide the facilities whereby Gambians can access decent housing? And the final one relates to clean environment. Should that be made a right? In other words, should it be should the government be compelled, that should the state be compelled to provide an environment that provides us with clean water, clean air, and basically clean environment? Should that be made a right? Now, the reason we are asking this question is simple. These are necessities of life. We all recognize that. And one may argue that the state has the responsibility to steer every citizen to that particular goal. But some may equally argue that the state's responsibility really to provide these as a matter of right. But then there are certain realities you have to weigh as well. Affordability. Can our resources afford providing all these things? Or should they be provided as a right, but to be attained in a gradual form, let's be attained progressively over time? These are difficult questions, but we must address them because they are important to the livelihood of not only the present generation, but of generations yet to come. And we would want your opinion on those issues. If you feel that they should be provided for in the new constitution as rights, that means they will be justiciable. Where the state fails to provide access to medical health care, then an individual can sue the state. Similarly, decent housing, clean environment, and so on. So your opinions on these things will matter to us. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Somebody said something about the jewelers and the sailors. Be careful. The sailors are very powerful. So if you are full, be careful. Because we have a room outside. Actually, I had my name down earlier on about the citizenship, but Brother Osman, Sister Omi, and the previous speakers pretty much cover what I wanted to say, so there's no point in me repeating myself. But when it comes to healthcare, I think that's a basic right. I don't think there should be a question whether the state should provide healthcare. Yes, we know the Gambia is, even though we are, 54 years independence, but I would consider it like 2 years. We're crawling, we're baby. Some of us have been living here for 10 or more years. To be realistic, we do not expect the same amenities as in America. But just the basic paracetamol, the basic fansida, basic things for malaria, I think should be provided at the RVH or the new name now, anyone small training hospital, just the basic stuff. And if I remember correctly, I was trying to jot stuff down and listen at the same time, trying to multitask, about the clean environment. Clean environment should be automatic. And I've read and I've seen stuff online about Rwanda, if I'm not mistaken, how clean Rwanda is. Gambia can do that, but the government cannot provide that. It has to start with us citizens. If you finish eating a mango, an orange, put it somewhere, don't destroy it. And it's Gambians in Gambia, Gambians in America. You come to 4th of July, there are trash cans around. People eat and throw it on the ground. Those are the things that the government can provide. We as Gambians, it starts from the ordinary citizens. Ordinary, the small people like, well, not small, we are all important. But those are the basics, but clean environment should be number one. When you have the gutters in Banjul, I grew up in Banjul, my family's in Serkunda, but I can't tell you much about Serkunda. Banjul, we used to have we used to call them the gutters. The water was flowing. When the water is flowing, then there's no place for mosquitoes to breed. I mean, I was in Gambia 2 years ago. Banjul is, for lack of a better word, is disgrace. I mean, the gutters are like the trash cans now. That's a breeding place for mosquitoes, for disease right there. So I'm going to cut it down here because I have something else that I want to say later. Hopefully we'll get to that topic. I don't want to elaborate, but definitely let's start with that. Let's start at an individual level. So for instance, my words are sorans.
Very good point. I wish we can get one of those in the Constitution. Yeah, definitely. The next, Papa Sila, please. we are building up a list. If you come up here, as the chairman has summarized most of the topics, please just feel free to comment. It's been documented, and I bet they will get all of it when it's over with. So just be patient with it. Baba, can you just look at the camera right there? Yes, there.
Okay, my name is Babu Kashsewa. I was born in Dipakuna, so Serakuna West constituency. So, just a couple of things here, Mr. Chairman. A child that is found in the Gambia. The ones I'm not going to address are the ones that I agreed with, the Umi Andrews and the Musa Agenza and other people. So a child found in the Gambia, I think we need to put it in the right perspective. You know, what context did we found this child? You know, like Miles said, before we can citizenize that child. You know, I think that's very important. So dual nationality is allowed. And I just want to go back to the point Shola Lewis brought up. When you're a U.S. citizen of a Gambian origin, you go to the Gambia with your U.S. passport. Coming out of the Gambia, this is where it gets funky. The immigration officers want to know, how did you come to the Gambia, Mr. Chairman? So that's how, I think that's where the question came from. Because I have both passports. So when I go in, automatically I give them the Gambian passport. So when you coming out, they want to know, because you cannot board that flight, that international flight, without a U.S. passport. So they want to know, how did you come in? Because they cannot find a Gambian stamp on that passport. So those are the things you need to, that probably is out of scope for this constitution, but it's probably just a training matter for the immigration officers. They should not ask that question. So on the death penalty, I'm not for the death penalty. I'm sorry, but I never thought it was a deterrent. The U.S. have it. People are killing people every day. So we need to find a better solution. Killing somebody because they killed somebody. I don't think, honestly, that it is what needs to be done. On the housing, I think for the government to provide the tools for housing, well, some of us that have houses in the Bidul and Busuli areas, we see that. I came back from the Gambia today, so it rained twice, and there's a lot of mess in those streets. And we pay our rates every year. We pay our rates. So what is stopping the Gilgama Area Council, all the government, to make sure that our good investments, you know, because that's what I call it. You know, you sit there, you pay NAWEC, you prepay for your electricity, and they cannot give you electricity. I'm sitting in darkness where they're holding my money. That doesn't make sense. I think prepaid electricity should only come into play when there is surplus electricity to be provided, right? Makes sense. It's like the bank holding your money and not giving you interest while they're utilizing it for their own businesses. So that needs to be addressed. I don't think that is right. Thank you. That's all I have for now.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kasa Sise. I'm from Ojuson. I have an issue with the child born to non-Gambian citizen. I don't think, as a woman, I would like my child to be an automatic citizen wherever they were born. I don't think it's the child's fault to be born in Gambia. The child didn't ask to be born or to be born to non-Gambian citizens. So I have an issue with that. I think the child should be granted automatic citizen. And my second one is, if somebody is married to a Gambian, I think 15 years is too long to wait. Like in America here, 7. Like in America here, it takes only 2 years. And then you're given a temporal, whatever it is, for 10 years. I mean, for 2 years, then you wait for another 10 years or 5 years to be a citizen. I think it should be at least 5, from anywhere from 3 to 5.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. That's one of our Adela team members, the women's team. The next
Moro Sise.
I do have other comments, but I think this immigration thing has been covered already. I actually do know something about immigration law because I handle a bunch of it. I think simplicity is the best way to go. You don't want this convoluted rules and regulations where people can't read and write and they're supposed to navigate all these difficult rules. I think that just wouldn't work. It invites corruption, people pay a lot of money, they're not told the right things. Make it simple and make it short. If you do that, we do well. If you don't do that, a bunch of corruption, people get their time wasted, and it's just that I don't think it works well.
Good point. As well as he said.
And by the way, death penalty is not definitely then just do away with that one.
Thank you, Adam.
Just to respond to the earlier point you made, and again, it's a very relevant point. To some of the places we've been to and had similar consultations, people have emphasized to us the importance of civic education. And that's something we are taking on board because a lot of ignorance comes as a result of, considering the nature of our population where the large majority are still not landed in the formal school system. It's a problem. They are unaware, and we need to, basically increase the level of civic education to cover things beyond the Constitution alone. Right now, it's provided for in the Constitution, but much of the work relates to matters contained in the Constitution. But a lot of the issues that we are even discussing here are contained in statutes that people are unaware of. So maybe civic education needs to be brought in to deal with this very concern that we are expressing. And I agree with you. When people are aware, they know what to do and what not to do and what to challenge and how to go about it. Just to make that point. Thank you.
One Sharia, but it's the Constitution. We can still entertain our views, right? I mean, if you all want Sharia, we can do that too. But anyway, now, the healthcare. Oh my God, I forgot about that. My name is Bankamani, and I'm from Okunfoot. So that's where I'm from. Same place with Cherno, he's married.
He's from Old Window.
Yeah, no, he's from Okunfoot. But anyway, as far as the healthcare and all those things that you guys have mentioned, I think that we need to institutionalize all those issues. And the only way to do that is to put them in the Constitution. Healthcare should be a right of every citizen. It shouldn't be, there should be no ambiguity whether it's government's role or not. You have to put it in the Constitution. The environment has to be institutionalized. This is the only way citizens can, if they buy into the Constitution, that is, if we have, because the Constitution is only going to be effective if we have enough citizens buying into it. So, and enough people, that is. We don't have to have the whole country agree with it or go for it. But if enough people buy into the Constitution, it really can do wonders. And in this case, if enough people believe that healthcare is their right, that is, whether government likes it or not, this has to be in place, then obviously in that case, we'll be able to, they can be able to hold demonstrations and demand it if it is not available. If the environment is being abused, like what we are having right now in Burfoot and those common areas, people can actually get up and do something about it, that is taken to carry out peaceful protest, because it's in the Constitution, they can demand it as part of their right. So I think that anything that has to do with these fundamental issues like healthcare, education, environment, I can go on and on and on, the religious belief, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly. Those issues have to be institutionalized in ways that will cement them, concretize them, make them just so valid that nobody can mess with them. And that's what I have to add. But anyway, it should be in the Constitution.
A great one. Pambu, Alaji Suleiman.
Good evening, everybody. I almost give up whatever I was to say, but at least I have interest in one of the topics. Don't get me wrong, all the topics are important, especially to us Gambians who are here. We are here, but our ears and eyes are all
in Gambia. So I was interested in the death penalty because we got messages from Gambia that most of the crimes committed are from non-Gambians.
Where are you from?
Thank you very much. Thank you, that's important. I'm Pat Suleiman Wu. That's my auntie right there. I mean, she knows me well. I was born in Gambia, Banjul. And as well, I was born from Banjul to Basel. This is a statement I usually make here. If there's anybody in the United States, I don't know anybody from you, you're not a Gambian. That's how popular I am. I'm well known. Thank you. So I'm interested in this death penalty. I believe ananafsu bin nafsi. Anybody who kills deliberately, without any mistake or anything, be killed. Simple. Thank you.
Mr. Sanyang, please. Alaikum everyone. My name is Seneca Sanyang from Farabaganda, Eastern Congo. Mr. Chairman, Commission members, ladies and gentlemen, my first topic is not for the death penalty. I am 1000% in for the death penalty. Don't call me an extremist, please, I am not. Human nature itself needs some kind of control and deterrence. When we were children, or up to time of our maturity, murder in the Gambia used to be very mixed up because it is really hard. Now, it's almost a daily thing in the Gambia. And that is because migration. The Gambia's borders are very porous. People get in and out just like that. Our immigration officers are not able to control every corner of the border. Giving somebody the right to kill and say, okay, you'll be all right, to me is not right. What about the individual who died? What about him? What is his right? What is his right? Can anybody tell me? What is his right? So please, don't call me an extremist. I am 1000% in for the death penalty. Education should be a right. An educated nation is an advanced nation and is a developed nation. When people are not educated, they don't even know what are their rights, what are their responsibilities, and even what are their duties to the nation. Yes, it's going to be very, very difficult. It's going to be tough, but we need it. If it cannot be up to university level, but at least let it go a step or two further, at least for the time being. But let it be the aim that eventually even university may be free. Don't call me a socialist. Please, don't call me a socialist. All right?
Yes.
Healthcare. A healthy nation is a prosperous nation. Yes, it will be very, very difficult. You go to Gambia today, almost every day, so-and-so has died. Oh, just yesterday we were together. I want to believe there is a lot of pollution that is not controlled in the whole of the Gambia. And I believe the contribution is exhaust pipes. Dust on food that is being sold in the streets. What are our health officers doing? What are their duties? Why were they trained? Are they putting into real use? Maybe not. So that dedication, I want to believe
Please, the Gambian to me, what I see out there, we need to be very patriotic. We need to teach each other what is right for that nation and what is not right. You don't need to fight over it. A simple education. Oh, please don't throw that out there. Somebody will mistake for that, he'll fall down and get injured. Please, so don't put it there. But then, let's go to local governments. They need to provide places where these disposable things can be placed. If that is not available, I wonder how long would I be able to carry the thing that I want to throw away. So those means need to be catered for almost at every corner. Civic education is very important. Our politicians, even some law enforcement officers, are able to strike on us simply because we don't have civil rights. That's not the case. That's not the case. Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry I don't have all the time, otherwise I have other quarters to go through. But then it looks like I've overspent my time. So, Seneke, S-E-N-A-K-E. Sanyang, S-A-N-Y-A-N-G. From Farababata, Congo East.
I like his format. Maybe we just need to concise it a little bit. If that's okay, Chairman. Yeah, he's commented on so many of the topics. So. Okay, now, Amadou Jane, Doctor.
Good evening. My first point, going straight to it. My name is Amadou Jane, Skatred Jane from Gunjur. Not Brufut, but Gunjur. Okay. First thing is we need to buck the trend. Political scientists say that African constitutions are written in pencil. So let's make sure that this one is durable. And it would be very important also if it's as concise as possible. We don't want a very voluminous constitution. And besides that, the death penalty, I'm very much opposed to the death penalty. I want to abolish it because I've seen firsthand, I saw people being taken away to be executed and the types of emotions and also the fact that one who had serious mental issues was executed as well. So I think we should have other alternatives. It does not serve us as a deterrent, and it's best that we abolish the death penalty. We also need to have a provision in the Constitution dealing with the environment, particularly destruction of the environment. We should have something in the Constitution that ensures that the state has a responsibility to make sure that investors or even ordinary citizens do not destroy the environment, because we are talking about resources that belong to the entire community. And I'll take this opportunity, let me make it very quick. We also need to have a redrawing of our constituency boundaries to make sure that we have political equality. It doesn't make sense for one constituency with one representative to have 10 times the population of the other. That needs to be taken care of. And I'm also in favor of two-term limit, 5 years per term. We'll get to that. Okay. All right. So let me not get carried away and present the draft. Okay. And I'll stop here until you get to some of those. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much. I'm from Banjul, by way of Freetown, Sierra Leone. Before I tell you the death penalty, I am against the death penalty.
There is no statistical proof anywhere in the world to indicate that death penalty can deter crimes. I believe that our experience here in the United States have taught us that the judicial system can be very good, but it's not perfect. We have witnessed the case of people sent to the death row for years and later vindicated as innocent. So, lessons learned. This is one mistake that no country should afford to make. On the issue of education, health, and environment, at a minimum, we should guarantee access to education, health, and environment is something relative. This is not to say that we can comparably provide education and environment at the development nations level, but at least there should be an effort. But on the issue of environment, that's the universal right. That is the one that I am the most concerned with. In order to get there, a clean environment can only be achieved if you have good infrastructure. And you cannot isolate a good environment from a good infrastructure. So this is the part that I believe that should be much emphasized in this new constitution, the environment. It's a universal right. We can see the Paris Accord. We are witnessing nations all over the world championing these issues. So we in the developing countries should get with the program and make sure that we have a good layout of clean environment. And in order to do that, there should be the right infrastructure. One of my brothers here brought up the issue about the rains just coming into Banjul and the effects it's having on the environment. By having good constitutional laws or local council laws regarding zoning, regarding commitment to sanitation, regarding commitment to electricity, which is a very, very, very important instrument in providing a good environment. So I believe that at a minimum, a good environment should be a much more entrenched clause in the Constitution. But with education, health, that can be an access. And secondary school education should be a minimum achievement for every Gambian child. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Salo. The next speaker is Tijan Seymour, one of Adera's best.
Tijan Seymour from Wallet, natural king of the Fullers and Blowers. On the issue of basic health care and environment, I agree with everybody who spoke about that. The only thing I would add is that just to make sure citizens have the rights to demand these services without fear of persecution. Because we see in so many areas where the government fails to deliver and you can't really see anything. On education, too many kids back home haven't finished high school, mainly because maybe they can't afford it or because of the current education system. So at minimum, I would advocate for free education through high school. Because the more educated a nation we are, the better we are going to be. And in terms of citizenship, I would like to speak on, before I get there, the thing about death penalty, totally against it. I think there are ways that we can punish people without killing them. Naturalization, 15 years is too long. If you live in a country and you've been a good citizen and have proven that, no more than 7 to 10 years you should be given citizenship. Non-Gambians residing in Gambia for 7 years, that's too long. 5 years, they can get citizenship. And the kids that are born there without parents being Gambians, they should naturally get citizenship. And if you get citizenship through naturalization, there shouldn't be any reason for you to give up your original citizenship. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for your hospitality and very interesting contributions. I'm going to speak about elections, and I'll ask some few questions, and then later on we will appreciate your answers and your suggestions. I'll start with the Independent Electoral Commission, the IEC. And the first question is, should the President have the power to appoint and remove the chairperson of the IEC or a commission?
Calm down.
Thank you. You will have the opportunity to give us your answers. Let's proceed with the questions. You can note them, please. Second question. Should we continue to have term limits for the IEC commissioners? Currently, the provision is 7 years, renewable for another 7 years, which makes it 14 years. Should we continue with that, or do you want us to change? The third,
just write it down.
And if you want us to change, please note your suggestions.
Thank you. Just write it down.
The third question relates to assets declaration by public officials. Should the chairperson of the IEC and the commissioners be requested to declare their assets? Should the President of the Republic, the Vice President, the ministers, the members of the National Assembly, similarly be required to declare their assets? If yes, when should the declaration be made? Please note your answers. You'll have an opportunity to share them with us. The next question touches on prisoners. Should prisoners be allowed to vote? Still on election, and I think this will interest all of us. Should diaspora Gambians be allowed to participate in elections? To have the right to vote and be voted for? Okay, you can give us your views later. And should they participate in all elections, presidential, National Assembly, and local government? Or would you prefer for diaspora Gambians to just participate in some elections? We would want to get your views later. Still on elections, the next question is, should the Gambia adopt the ballot system of voting, or should we continue with the token system, the marbles that we are using now? Should there be restrictions on private funding of political parties? And should there also be restrictions on private funding of elections? Last question on elections. Should there be a provision in the Constitution requiring political parties to disclose their source of funding? And should this only be restricted to external funding? If you have suggestions, please let us know. Let's move on now to local government. And the question we have, the first question for local government is, are the powers devolved to local governments, that is the municipalities and the area councils, sufficient for purposes of ensuring effective governance, proper administration, and development of the various regions in the Gambia. We would like to know your opinions on that. If there are deficiencies that need to be corrected, please can you share them with us? And what measures would you recommend to ensure an effective and efficient local government structure that will deliver well for the benefit of the people of the Gambia? I think earlier on somebody touched on local government. And the last part concerning local government relates to the traditional structures, chiefs, Sefol, and Alkalolo, the village heads. First question, should Sefol continue to be appointed directly by the president, or should they be elected, or should they be selected according to traditional lines of inheritance? Next question, should Alkalol, the village heads, be appointed by the local government minister, or should they be elected into office, or should they be selected according to traditional lines of inheritance? And the last question, should there be provisions in the Constitution prohibiting Sefol and Alkalolo from engaging in partisan politics? We thank you very much, and we will appreciate your views and suggestions. Thank you. Governors, the regional governors, should they be appointed? Should they continue to be government appointees, or should they be elected? We would like to know your opinions on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, moving on, guys, we really have to keep these comments very short, because if not, we will spend the night here. Very short, summarizing. I bet they've had a lot of stuff before. Now, the next person I'm going to call on is Fat.
My name is Fatou Fall. I was born and raised in Gambia, Banjul. Anyway, my question was for the healthcare. I feel like we should really start doing something about the healthcare. You can't go to the hospital and die because you have a headache or stomachache. The cleanliness of the environment, and we need more training for the medical team. We need ambulances, and for the president should be 2 terms, and there should be no rights for prisoners to vote. That's all I have.
Now that is good. I mean, if we can get this stuff, we'll be out of here very soon. Now the next on the Susan Jame.
My name is Susan Jame, and I was born in Banjul. I was raised in the Congo area. Most of my questions have already been asked, so I'm not going to repeat myself. But since this couple of topics have been raised, diaspora voting, of course, is unanimous. We all agree on that. So that we need. And in terms of prisoners, should they be should they be allowed to vote? They are citizens. They should vote. So, they did a crime. They are in jail. But they should be allowed to vote. So that's what I have.
Short and sweet. Thank you. Veronica Fowler.
My name is Veronica Fowler, and I was born in Banjul. My comment is relating to the Independent Electoral Commission. I believe it needs to be independent, as the name says. So it should not be directly linked to the government. Secondly, I think that there is a term limit for the commissioner to be the same kind as the president, 2 years, and in each term to be 5 years. My last one is the asset declaration. I believe anybody who is going to stand for a position needs to declare their assets before the elections.
My name is Ibrahim Ajani. I am from Anchan in the Upper Salem.
I have two comments to make. One is social and economic rights. And we said access to healthcare, education, clean environment should be enshrined in the Constitution. But we need to go a step further. Just like the chairman said, they're not justiciable. We cannot hold the government accountable. We have to define what we mean when we say access to healthcare. When we say access to education, it's pretty clear. Education should be free for all Gambians up to upper basic now. There's the basic cycle. But if we say access to healthcare, what does that mean? If we know the meaning, then we can hold the government accountable if they don't provide that. And right now, we all know, as most of us stated here, that in the Gambia, healthcare is not in its best state. Most people have to run to Senegal to get treatment. What is stopping us from building infrastructure that Senegal has? So it will be important if we can have the government accountable, or at least state clearly in the Constitution as to what we mean by access to healthcare and how do we hold our government accountable. And that goes for environment, it goes for education as well. And the second one was the asset declaration for the president, vice president, and National Assembly members. And I think all of you will agree with me that one of the things that's plaguing Africa is corruption. People come into office empty pocket and they leave with millions and billions. So it would be important if we can have our public officials declare their assets. What do you have before you come into power? And when you're leaving or when you're up for re-election, what do you have? And how do you have it? So I think those are two important points I want to raise. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Asking you about the system of government you want us to put in place in the new constitution. Questions about the office of the president. Questions about the commission, about the cabinet, and finally about service commissions. The first is on system of government. And the question is whether in the new constitution you would want us to provide for a presidential system of government, a parliamentary system of government, or a hybrid. With your permission, I will explain. Parliamentary system of government in the sense the president, or whatever name we call him or her, would have to come from parliament. The ministers too have to come from parliament. For those of us who are students of history, you know, from the time we had our independence up to 1982, the president wasn't directly elected. We would have parliamentary elections, and the leader of the party with the majority in parliament will be called upon to form a government. The leader would do so, and we know in doing so, he took all his ministers from parliament. That went on, like I said, from independence until 1982. Then after 1982, up to the coup, we experimented with what is called the hybrid system. Hybrid in the sense, we started voting for the president directly, which is a feature of the presidential system. We also know at the time, all ministers were taken from parliament. We, for example, had OJ minister and at the same time, parliamentarian for Serekunda East. That was what we had, hybrid. But that changed in 1996. Under the 1997 Constitution, which provides for the presidential system, we would vote for the president. After the president assumes office, he would appoint his ministers. And we know if you are a minister, you cannot be a parliamentarian under the current system we have. So the question is, do you want us to continue as it is, meaning presidential system, meaning we vote for the president and his ministers wouldn't be coming from parliament? Or you want us to go back to what we had before 1982, which is the parliamentary system? Or you want us to go for what we had between 1982 to 1994, the hybrid system? Please, when you take the floor, help us clarify, as in be clear as to what you would want us to provide for. Now on the office of the president, The first question, we would want your thoughts as to what the educational qualifications of the president of our country should be. At the moment, if you have grade 12, you can run for office, as in, you can be elected into office as president. So please tell us whether you think we should leave the constitution that way, as in making it secondary education after grade 12, anybody is eligible to run for office as president, or do you think 12 years is, we need to add to the 12 years? So please tell us, sorry, not 12 years, grade 12, secondary education. Please tell us. The next, again, on the office of the president is on the age limit. Under the current law, if you are 30, you can run for president. In your view, do you think 30 is too small? Or you think we should, do you think we should add to it, or we should reduce it? You know, never too young to run, as Mr. Manjal and his group would say. Or sorry, Commissioner Manjal. Then the other, that's on the minimum, 30 years. What about maximum? Before the constitution was changed about a year, 2 years ago, we had maximum of about 65 years, meaning at 65 you had to leave. But we know that ceiling was removed. So for now, there is no maximum. Do you think we need to bring back that maximum? And if you think we have to bring back that maximum, what should that be? Should it be the same we had before, 65? Or we should have it increased to 100 years? Or we have no maximum at all? Please tell us. Still on the office of president, we are asking, and I will have this expanded a bit to include vice president, ministers, National Assembly members. And I'm sure almost everybody in this room would be interested in this question. Persons with dual nationality, like you're Gambian, you're American at the same time, you're Gambian, you're Senegalese, or you're Gambian, you're German. Should persons with dual nationality be allowed to run for the office of president? Should we also allow them to be appointed as vice president of our country? Should we also allow them in the constitution to be appointed as ministers or to be voted into office as National Assembly members? Please tell us, persons with dual nationality, whether we can have them either elected or appointed to the offices I just referred to. Still on the office of president, this question is on the residency requirement before anyone can run for office as president. Under the current law, before we can vote you into office as the president of our country, you must be ordinarily resident in the Gambia for a period of not less than 5 years. So please tell us, do you think 5 years is too short, we should have it increased? Or you think it is too long, we should reduce it? Remember, the wordings are ordinarily resident. It doesn't mean you have to be permanently resident in the country. As in, it's about having a home, of course, the ability to go come in some instances. Please tell us, do you think the 5-year residency requirement is long or is short? A few people have already addressed the next question on term limits. Under our current law, we don't have term limits for the office of president. So for as long as we continue to vote you into office, you will remain the president of our country. Do you think we should introduce term limits in our new constitution? Yes. Or you think we don't need to? But when you take the floor to tell us your views, please clarify. When you say term limits, what do you mean? Are we going for the Putin kind of term limit? As in, president, 5-6 years, you go, come back later. Please help us understand what you mean by term limits. Or do we say, if a term is about 4 years or 5 years, after you finish 1-2 terms, you have to go never to come back again. Please help us understand. The other is on election to the office of president. Our current law provides for what we call the simple majority system, first past the post, meaning after the votes are counted, whoever has the most votes would assume office as president. So it wouldn't matter even if you got 11% of the total votes cast. For as long as you got the most votes, you would assume office as president of our country. That's what we call the simple majority system. The other is called the absolute majority system, meaning before you assume office, after the votes are counted, you must have won 50 plus 1. That was what we had, 50% plus 1. That was what we had in the 1997 Constitution. But we know in the 2000s, it was changed to provide for the simple majority. So in your view, do you think we should go back to the absolute majority system, or we should stay with the simple majority in the new Constitution? Then, this section is on prohibitions. Do you think in the new Constitution, we should have a provision prohibiting the President of our country from accepting gifts that are personal to him or her? Yes. Should that be? Again, if you believe we shouldn't bar the President from accepting gifts that are personal to him or her, do we make that subject to the approval of the National Assembly? Do we also say, even if gifts are received, that should be disclosed? Do we need that captured, or we don't need to? Please let us know. Again, do you think in the Constitution we're about to draft, we should have a provision prohibiting the President of our country from getting engaged in business activities? Do we need to provide that in the Constitution, or we don't need to? Do you also think we should have a provision in our Constitution, either allowing the President or prohibiting him from setting up foundations or charitable institutions? And here, when we say President, we also include members of his or her family. Should we have a clause in the Constitution allowing the President, his or her family, to get involved in or setting up foundations or charitable institutions, or that should be expressly prohibited in the Constitution? This section is on Vice President and the Cabinet. Under our current law, the Vice President of our country is appointed by the President. The President can appoint him. He can also fire him or her whenever he or she wants. In the US, we all know they have what they call the running mate system, meaning they also have the same thing in Nigeria, meaning you vote for the President and the Vice President at the same time, one ticket. Do you think in our new Constitution we should go with the running mate system like you have here? Or we should continue giving the President of our country the power to keep appointing the Vice President? So please tell us. The next one is on the Cabinet. What we're asking is, do we need a clause in the Constitution specifically saying, in appointing members of this Cabinet, the President should have in mind marginalized groups? CRC defines marginalized. So in CRC language, when we say marginalized groups, we mean women. We know, we're told in our country there are more than 50% of the population, maybe about 51. But when it comes to high-level positions, we know they're not adequately represented. We also mean persons with disabilities, or persons who are differently able. We use, marginalized groups in that sense. We also mean the youth, because we told 62% of Gambians are below the age of 35 years. But we all know if you look at high-level positions, we really have very few of them. So do you think it is important or necessary for us to have a clause in the Constitution specifically saying, in appointing persons to his cabinet, the President must have in mind women, persons with disabilities, and the youth? Do you think we need that in the Constitution, or we don't need to? We should just leave it to the President to decide wherever he or she wants appointed. The last two questions are on the public service. There is a Public Service Commission for the Gambia. We also know there are lots of teachers in our country. We also have a lot of people working in the health sector. Then we told, most Gambians are also engaged in some form of agricultural activity. In addition to the Public Service Commission, do you think in the new Constitution we need to provide for a Teaching Service Commission, Agricultural Service Commission, or a Health Service Commission? Do you think we need those provided for, or we don't have to? Doing so would mean having too many commissions in our country. We should leave it as it is. Please tell us what you think. The last is on the Office of Secretary General, and for the question I will break it acting into one or two. Should we continue to give the President of our country the power to appoint the Secretary General and Head of the Civil Service, or that should be subject to the approval of the National Assembly? Again, do you also think the position of Secretary General, Head of the Civil Service, should be political? Because we all know in the past, we've had Secretary General who at the same time were Minister for Presidential Affairs. Do you think that should, strictly speaking, be a civil service position? Or, meaning it should be a political? Or you think we should remain as we are at the moment? Like I said, the question's many. But let me just do a very quick recap with your permission. I asked you about the public service, whether we need to have other service commissions. I also asked about the Secretary General. Should that be a political? What about Vice President? Do we do the running mate system? Do we also need to expressly provide for marginalized groups in the new constitution? What about prohibitions? Should we allow our President to get involved in business activities? Or the President or his or her family to get involved in charitable causes, as in setting up foundations or charitable institutions? What about elections? Do we do simple majority of 50+1? Term limit for the office of President. Should we have that in the new constitution, or we don't have to? How about persons with dual nationality? Should we allow them to man the positions that in fact to earlier? What about the residency requirement? 5 years, too long, too short? What about age limit? Minimum 30, too young, or we need to add to it? Do we need to introduce a maximum? What about the educational qualifications for the President? Finally, what about the system of government you want us to put in place in this new constitution? So we thank you very much, and we will be happy to hear from you. Thanks.
Mr. Moderator, before we go into responding to those questions, it just occurred to me that there was no response from the audience on the local government questions that we are raising. So there are people with you, so you will respond when it comes. Okay, thank you very much. Just wanted to make sure we don't leave Atlanta with no opinion on those. Thank you.
We are just going to continue with the list. So like I said, if you come in and we are talking on a current topic, you can maybe just say a point and move on. But because the stories are just going to keep us here for a very, very long time. Just make your comment. The stories are very interesting, but this is a fact-finding mission. The stories really is very relevant and will just take a lot of time. And we are on the clock, Musa and Banka. Okay, I will call on Jibril Joe, please.
I'm from Lalikuda, German. Most of the topics that I wanted to cover have already been covered, so I don't want to duplicate it. We're talking about minority groups, and I'm talking about maybe government endorsement of religion. I think there should be a separation of government and religion. As a government official, your salary is paid by taxpayers. And Gambia is consistent of people from different religions. So I think government should refrain from the endorsement of religion. Now, if the president or any government official want to do something in a private capacity, doesn't care. But from a government level, I don't think government should be endorsing any religion. And that's what I want you guys to consider. Thank you so much.
Do we have another John? We have a John. The other Amelia Soul has surname for file.
Hey! Good evening, everybody. So I have just a few points that I want to bring up today. The first thing is about the marginalized groups in Gambia, women, handicap, and all of that. I think that there should be an Equal Opportunity Act to ensure that people are given the same opportunities as far as education and also employment. So I think that's really important. The other one also I wanted to address was for public offices. I think that anybody that's running for public office and serving citizens should be elected. That way, should be elected in office by the citizens that they are representing so they can have a voice. And my last point is also about education. We all know that an educated nation is a progressive nation. So I think that we should also be able to provide some degree of free education. I'm not sure how far we can go based on the finances of Gambia, but I think we should also focus on vocational training, because not everybody is equipped to go to high school and university. So focusing on vocational training is also able to help the people that are not book savvy, computer savvy or whatnot, to be able to focus on other skills, because we do need those skills as well to help develop our nation. So I think that was my...
You think that you no longer side with the opinions of your party or as an independent, you want to join another party. So do you lose your seat on the account that you have joined another party? In their political term, they call it cross-carpet. So do you lose your seat once you cross-carpet and a by-election be organized? Or you just inform your people and then you move on? What are your opinions on that? And still on the National Assembly, before we used to have the National Assembly election and the presidential elections on the same day. But now we have the presidential election. After 1 year or so, we have the National Assembly elections. So do you want that trend to continue, or should we change it to have it that the presidential election and the National Assembly election be done on the same day at the same time, and then the counting should also be done that way? What are your opinions? The representation has already been dealt with by Commissioner Song, that the youth, women, and the physically challenged should they also be given room to participate or be represented in the House, to have youth representing youth in the Assembly, to have women represent women in the Assembly, and physically challenged be representing physically challenged. And if we are to do this, what are your opinions on that? Should we introduce the quota system? And if we are to introduce the quota system, what is the number that we should give to these different groups to be able to have a representation in the Assembly? Or should we make it as a law that the political parties in the time of elections be all forced to put in a number of candidates to be able to contest for these positions? If a party A is coming with 80 members or 80 people to contest for elections, how many of that 80 should be from these groups? Should we enforce that? The last question is the language of discussion in the Assembly. Right now, the language of discussion is only English, and English alone. All discussions in the Assembly are done in English. We are asking, in your opinion, do you think we can revert back to our own local languages? Like the example I always give. We said Gambia, we have a lot of a good population that have not read English. We call them illiterates. Now that a grandma who is in Badibo, who has not been to school, don't understand English, but we have a parliamentarian, Lansambudan, only for GRTS to show Lansambudan speaking at the Assembly, the woman will just laugh. Hey, young Lansambudan body telephone. But when Lansambudan was saying, has no clue. Do you think we should introduce our local languages in the Assembly? So that if Lansambudan is talking, the woman in Badibu Saba will understand the Mandika that Lansambudan is speaking. And that applies to all the other languages that are available to the Gambia when our representatives are in the Assembly. Should we introduce them? Thank you also very much.
Guys, we are moving right along. And the next speakers are going to be Musa Jeng, Seneca Sanyang, Usman Fall, Keba Sidide, and Bojadi. Right here.
Like I said before, Musa Jeng from Kawukandimaya. Going back to local government, I really do believe we need to do away with this safe law, because we are over-bureaucratizing the local government. When we have an elected governor, then we have elected alcaldes. Forget about safe law. It's a colonial relic. What do they do except sell land? Let's get rid of it. It's a waste of our time. Mode of voting. We need to get away from these models. And I know people think we've been doing it for a while. There was a TV show that I was watching, and they said, which country out there still have this mode of voting like during the time of Alexander the Great? They say Gambia. I mean, that's disgraceful. The idea that we are all illiterates, that our people can actually use paper ballots, I think that's not true. And secondly, it's not even practical. You have 10 people running for president, and believe me, 2021 is going to be 50 people running for president. Are you going to have 50 cans for them to actually vote with marbles? It's not practical logistically. So we need to do away with that. Diaspora voting. We don't only want to vote. This citizenship with asterisk, we got to get away with it. If I'm a citizen, I want to vote and then be voted upon. If you don't want me to run for president, don't even ask me to vote. I'm a citizen, I want to vote, and I want to be able to run for office. IEC, the president can nominate, but he shouldn't have total monopoly to nominate an IEC chairman without confirmation from, let's say, the National Assembly or some sort of service commission. System of government. I really like the presidential system. I also like the running mate system as well. Educational qualification. Let's not kid ourselves. I know my colleague talked about you have to have a bachelor's degree. I think even secondary school education is an insult. Let's leave it open. Let's leave it to the voter in Sutukondi to vote for whoever he wants, even if the person doesn't have an educational requirement. Let people run against him that he doesn't have the qualification, but let him make the decision. Don't put it in a constitution to disqualify somebody because you don't think, especially when you did not give them access to higher education, and you want to disqualify them. I have a problem with that. The age limit. Look, let's be honest. Again, leave it to the voter. If somebody is 80, let the voter vote for that person. Don't disqualify the person because you think he's over 65. No restrictions. Dual citizenship, same thing. It would be shameful if they decide that the moment you become a dual citizen, you are not basically going to be qualified to run for president or even cabinet minister. What are we doing to our country? When you have resources lurking within the diaspora, people who are capable all we want to do is settle for mediocrity. We want people from Kaur just to run for president, or people from Dibakunda to run for president. It has to be a lot more than that. Leave it open, consistently. Presidential requirement, again, 2-term limits, I'm for that. 50+1, we have to do that. This simple majority. You need to be able to win absolute majority. Convince other people, reach out. That's the only way we can say that you are elected by the people. How in God's name are you going to have 15-20% and then you are elected president? I think that would be a mistake and a mistake. And we know why it was removed in 2000. There is a calculation. People are calculating for 2021. All they are saying is, do this and do that. Let's do simple majority. Setting up a foundation. We need to do away with that. That's corruption to the highest order. Secretary General, it has to be apolitical. Succession also, we need to do that. If the president dies tomorrow, you have a vice president. But if both of them are involved in an accident, who's going to succeed to be a president? We don't want to have a constitutional crisis. So it has to be listed. A president, a vice president, and then the Speaker of the House, and then who else? I think it is very, very important. Non-nominated or elected, there shouldn't be any kind of nomination by the president. That is one office that we need to tamper, the power of the presidency. We cannot have any separation of powers. The National Assembly, each and every individual, I believe, should be elected. Language, I think that I should be able to stand on the National Assembly like a fan and give take my one. Let's be honest to ourselves. These are the things, unless and until we open the system, we will be back to square one. Few people monopolizing the system, and it doesn't serve the next generation. I think that's all I have.
The next CRC.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Welcome to Atlanta.
What's your name?
My name is Kewa Sidibe. Born and raised in Dibakunda by the way of Georgetown.
Your real name?
Capital of Gambia, actually. Should the president appoint the IEC chairman? Yes, I'm in favor for it, but actually I wanted to see one step forward. I wanted to go to parliament for confirmation. This would limit the president's power, because one of the biggest problems we have actually today in Africa is too much power being given to the president and the executive branch. So the appointment could be made, but the confirmation has to be done through parliament. And once it's been appointed, the president shouldn't have any power to remove that person. And the IEC chairman also should serve not more than 2 terms, 5 years. As far as assets of the cabinet ministers, they should be declared. I'm in favor for that. Both the president, the vice president, and all the ministers, and the parliamentarians as well. Should the diaspora be allowed to vote? Yeah, of course. I think we should be allowed to vote. We've been given dual citizenship. We should be allowed to vote. That's a fundamental right we should have. And also, I think we should be allowed to serve in office except the presidency. But we should be able to serve as ministers and parliamentarians. Unless if you want to serve as president, then we have to denounce our other citizenship. Funding. I think, gifts to the presidency. I think the president should be allowed to accept any gift. The amount should be disclosed, but should be a maximum to that amount. It should be a cap to it. And then the name of the donor should be announced. As far as savos and alcalos, I think this is an area, particularly if you go in the rural areas, it's very sensitive. The savos should be elected, but the alcalos, most of these villages are inherited. People came and formed their own villages. I don't think the alcalos should be appointed by the president. These villages are owned by families. It's to stay that way to avoid conflicts in our country. And I'm in for the presidential system, and I'm also in for, as far as the age limit, I think it should go up to 35 instead of 30. The maximum, I don't think there should be a cap on that. As far as dual nationalism, I think for the president, the vice president, the ministers, and the MPs, they all should have Gambian citizenship. As far as residency for qualification to serve for president or for any of these offices, I think 5 years is okay. The term limit, I'm in for 2 terms, 5 years each. As far as simple or absolute majority, I will go for absolute majority and 50% more as far as the presidency is concerned. Lastly, but not least, disability. If you go into Gambia today, there's a lot of people that have been born with disability, and the government is not doing anything about it or giving them access to their basic human rights. And I think this constitution, we need to have a clause in there that give anybody that been born with disability or being diagnosed with disability that they can't work, the government should give them some kind of funding every month. They shouldn't be out there in the street begging. We owe that to our people, and that could happen to any of us. Anybody with a child with disability, you know how hard it is. Your entire schedule, your entire life change. So the government owe that to the citizens, and those people should be given access to basic health, basic education, and they should be even given free education if they want to, all the way to university level. I think that's one thing that we owe our disability people in the Gambia. And thank you very much.
So much.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners, and welcome to Atlanta. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to be very brief. My name is Mamadou Jaju. I was born in Banjul, but I call Fajikunda home. As far as Ms. Juve, I believe the IEC chairman, should he be elected or should the president nominate the IEC? I would go with the idea that the IEC chairman should be an elected position by the National Assembly, not by the president, and with a 2-term limit to go along with the presidency. Should the prisoner be able to vote? Prisoners are nationals of the country. If there could be a provision provided to them to vote, they should be given that provision to vote. people in the diaspora, should we be allowed to vote? I would say if you are accorded the opportunity to elect a president of your country, you should also be allowed to participate in any national discourse. That should be fair enough. Or should we go away with the marble system or go with a ballot system? I would support the ballot system, but right now in our political dispensation, I would still go by the marble system simply because we had 4 decades of most of our citizens not being educated to a certain level. So if you want to change our electoral system from a marble system that is being accessible to the layman, and these are the people that make decisions for our leaders from 2 decades ago, and you want to change it to this system that we want to adopt, it will take reorientation and education, and that will take away from the government coffers. And I would also support a 50+ majority for the presidency. And with local governments, I will say the CEFO should be elected, and the traditional line should be kept with alcalos simply because of traditional norms in our country. And I thank everyone. Thank you.
Very welcome. Amadou Sow, please.
Amadou Sow, briefing, and thank you for coming. I'm from Kedaga, a small village in the Atlantic Basin. I'll make it brief. I wanted to comment on almost everything that has been raised here, but I'm giving the last opportunity to speak. So I will just comment on those issues that I can remember. First and foremost, I would like to talk about dual nationality. And it's been covered, and my satisfaction, but this is important. I see no reason why a Gambian, born in the Gambia, raised in the Gambia, migrated to the United States, possesses reasons beyond his control, and acquired U.S. citizenship, should be barred from holding a public office or an executive position or running for office in the Gambia because he is also an American citizen. I think that's wrong, and that should be removed in the next constitution. Correct. But I should be careful. We must not oversimplify this. If the Gambian people are generous enough to appoint that person, to elect that person who is who has dual nationality, to the high office of President of the Republic of the Gambia, I do not think it is right for the President of our country to owe equal citizenship responsibility or to another country. It should not deter him from running for any person elected President of the Republic of the Gambia as he assumes office or she assumes office must renounce the nationality of any other country that he goes. I think that's it. Local government, CFOs, alcalos have been used as tools to further the agendas of various regimes that have been in that country. I think they should be barred from participating in partisan politics. They should be elected on an independent ticket, but cannot be used by the administrations that are in power to promote their partisan political agendas. They should refrain from participating, using their offices in partisan politics. That's very important. And on the age limit, 30 years is good, no limit. Residential qualification, 5 years, ordinarily resident. I think that needs to be defined for us to know what they simply mean by ordinarily resident. It has been a source of confusion in the past. I think if you're a Gambian, you were born and raised in the country, you own a property in the country, you pay rent, whether you are there physically or not, you should be able to run for any office in that country. You should be able to occupy any position that you are qualified for in that country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you think that the central bank governor, the appointment should be vetted also by the National Assembly? And thirdly, should the governor, the board of governors of the central bank be specified in the constitution, similar to the security of tenure outlined for judges?
We want your opinion on that. When it comes to public enterprises, also there, we have the heads of those institutions, NAWEC and GPPA and all those sorts of institutions are normally appointed by the president. The question is again, do you think that that should continue, or should they be also should such appointment be vested on the board of directors, or at least confirmed by National Assembly or another independent body? So basically, these are the 4 questions we have for you on the public finance, and I'll be looking forward to your responses. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. The question I'm now giving is on land and the environment. The first one specific to the land. You may be aware that in the 1997 Constitution there is a mention of that we should have a land commission. But from 1997 to date, just earlier this year that the land commission has been set up. Now our question is, do you think this land commission should be a constitutional provision? There was a mention, but the Assembly is supposed to legislate on it. From 1997 they did not, up to earlier this year. Now can we put that as a constitutional provision? And in this commission, do you think that if it is put in the new draft constitution, should that provision include their function, their powers, and as to what extent should their authority be? Should we have that in the new draft constitution? And with regards to the environment and natural resources, still under the land issues, we said, should specific provisions be made in relation to land ownership in the Gambia as between citizens and non-citizens? Land is confrontational from our consultation in the Gambia. Everywhere is land issues. Should there be limitations as to what portion of land should be owned by the Gambians and what portion of land should we give out in the event that foreign nationals come to the Gambia, be it investors or those who want to settle? What are your opinions to that effect? There has been a lot of mention about our environment. Those that are living in America give example of how can we protect it. Now we are asking the question officially. What specific provisions would you recommend as adequate measures to protect and preserve the Gambia's environment? And this to make sure that we have clean air, be it from our marine to our natural resources. How can we make sure that we protect all this? If you can share your experiences and expertise with us. The last question is on the youth service. The 1997 Constitution made mention that there should be a national youth service as well. We have a national youth service scheme. It is operational, but not very, very adequate to our take. Now we are asking, this youth service scheme, can we take reference from other countries? For example, Nigeria, that can we draw inspiration from there? That every young person in the Gambia, after your education, be it tertiary education, college, university, or so on, that after you completed that tertiary education, before you have a formal employment from the government, you serve the nation first, be it 6 months, 1 year, and so forth. But at least you have that youth service to give to the nation first before you will be formally employed. What are your opinions on that? Should we make this a mandatory requirement for every Gambian, or should we just leave it as it is optional? If you like, you do. If you like, you don't do. What are your opinions on that? That's the last question. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Whistleblower. Okay, I said the last question. Now the last question. The final one, whistleblower. Right now there is no policy document, or there is no rule that is protecting those who report misappropriation or mismanagement of public funds. In your opinion, do you think we should have that whistleblower protection as part of the draft new constitution? That if you believe or you think there is a mismanagement in an office, you can report it and that will not sanction any penalty on your head, or even your identity will not be revealed or you will lose your job. What are your opinions on that? Should we make that protection for those whistleblowers as part of the laws of the Gambia? Thank you.
My statement is more how do we, all this effort we do about the Constitution, how can we protect it from the military took over, where we put all these efforts and then say we have the constitution and you have 40 or 50 military guys that will come and take the constitution away. We should probably have something in there where if there is a military took over, they can never rule the country anymore. That's the only thing I have.
Yeah, thank you. Ansumana Dabo? Yeah. Ansumana? Ansumana? No? Lamin Sane?
I am Lamin Sane, I'm from Sukuta. I want to agree with the gentleman here. The most important thing for me in this exercise is to make sure that Mr. You said we shouldn't name names, but so I believe that we can all say 2 terms, but these 2 terms should include the current term of Mr. Barrow. And it should be in the Constitution that there is no ambiguity, in black and white, that this 4th term will count. Because I know in Africa, it's been all over, even in Senegal, Abdullah Wade tried it. This is the current problem in Burundi. The president said, we made a new constitution, but when we did it, there was no term limit. So this 4th term will not count. And as a result, we got citizens of Burundi, 100,000 plus outside the country, just for one person to cling on to power. It's not fair, it's not right, and just to make sure that we don't have that in the Gambia too, that people go out in the streets and be killed, just because Mr. Barrow or some people around him wants to, so let this count. And Mr. Jallo, I heard you say in the Gambia sometime, that this CRC can make or break the Gambia. And I can't agree more. So, but the way we can prevent that is not to kowtow anybody, including the president. There are people there that, they sat in the room with him. He signed that document, nobody forced him, and today he's refusing to abide by it. And then when we allow them, they will take, he developed the country, this and that. So my position is that it's 2 terms, and that would include, and it's retrospective, it will include Sadauda and Yaya Jammeh. They can never come back and rule it.
Good evening, Chairman, good evening, committee members. My name is Yaya Jammeh, I'm a native of Bufoot. My question here, I'm going to re-echo what Mr. Sane just said at Kebafun about the 2 term limits should apply from the day you assume power, not because Gambians didn't vote for transition president. So we voted for 5-year term in the Constitution. So I definitely want to re-echo that back again. And my other take is local government elections. I believe that to minimize corruption and abuse of power, as we are learning in some areas how these CEPOs were misbehaving to claim on the power to support or to propagate what the executive power is doing by abusing their own people just to stay in power. I think we need to go to elections in the local government areas too, from the alcalos, the CEPOs, and the commissioners and the governors too. I think we're supposed to help elections to have a partial system and to decentralize the government from executive power. And I am in support of a running mate system too. I think that would be fair. We should know who our vice president is going to be. We cannot just be in the loop and one day we get up and we find somebody being a vice president who is just going to be a whatever word I want to use here, like scumbag. We don't need a scumbag vice president. We need somebody who can be partial and represent the people as we voted for partial. And my other take here is education. We're talking about education. Are we still talking about the Western education here? Or are we trying to generalize it both Arabic and Western? Because for the past 50 years, we have seen what Western education have did to us. For the 50 years, all the corruptions mainly are done by Western education. So therefore, I don't think we should definitely discriminate those who study Arabic or study Swahili or whatever. It's all about the character and the leadership qualities that we can produce in the country. And another point that I want to make here is going to be about the, it's going to be about the commissioners yourself. I know you are committed to the country, you love the country, you are doing this wholeheartedly, independently, without the influence of the president, like you all say. There is a lot of trust in the people, and I know you all took an oath to be fair and to perform this duty. And I think by going around the country, we're talking about generations to come after us. This is the second, this is going to be the third one. The First Republic, we did that in 1970. 1997 one was tossed out. 1997 one was tossed out. There were term limits in that one, but overnight it was just back-channeled by the parliament that thrown that to silence, that we went through a hardship and brutality that we have gone, because we went on a referendum, people voted on stuffs, and we are seeing the same scenarios coming back where individuals were given immunity. Only few were given immunity in the constitution, but those who they used to kill murder, or they used to kill their fellow citizens, were exempt from that. So I don't know where is going to be the fairness of that constitution in the country, where few people can be granted amnesty or immunity, but the rest of the people that they are using to commit these crimes for them are not included in that immunity. And my last one is going to be about, like you said, that when we are ready to, when we are done preparing this draft constitution, as the president receives it, the public will receive it too. So we'll expect that to happen, and definitely I will love for you people to go back to the people again and explain it to them, not only in English, but also in local dialogues, to know that exactly what is in this constitution, so that the whole country can understand it. Not to be on GRTS to explain it in English, what is there and what is not there. We should have representatives from all these 7 tribes or 8 tribes that we have in Gambia, for people to know their citizenship rights in the constitution, what they ask for. Thank you very much.
As to amnesty, with the recommendation that there should not be any amnesty, and in any case, one needs to ensure that there is fairness and fair treatment of all across the board. And that is a particular subject matter we are looking at. I can't make any particular pronouncement on it at this particular stage, but it is important for you to know that this is one of the key issues that the CRC is looking into, and we will do the best we can to address it in a very fair and coherent manner. Then the question was also the need for public consultation on the new draft constitution. I believe I might have missed that when I made the introduction, but it is part of our action plan that once the draft constitution is published for public consultation, we will conduct that public consultation within the country. We do not have the budget here to conduct that outside of the country, but I'm sure you all will know how to do that. But within the country, we expect to engage in that consultation process in order to educate the public in terms of what is in the draft constitution, and ask them what their opinions are in relation to that before we finalize the constitution. Then there was a question as to whether we have any forum for public contribution to the constitutional review process. I believe this was raised by Sam Jai. Yes, I believe that point has already been addressed by Commissioner Deso, and we would really appreciate if you are able to, your opinions on some of the issues that we are not able to dilate on at this forum. However, we have a deadline to that. That is the 15th of this month. Because the issues document had been out since October of last year. We provided a deadline in November for written contributions, which we extended to end of December. But because people were so much interested in this particular subject matter, we just left it fluid. But obviously we have to put a closure at some point in order for all to be in a position to gauge the views and aspirations of the government people. So if you have any opinion, please send it to us by any of the medium that we have on the agenda, and that is so outlined quite clearly. And there was, I believe Sarah also made the point about the importance of strengthening our democracy. And I think we all can agree with that. And that begins with creating strong institutions. And that is one of the fundamentals that we as the CRC are looking into, to make sure that we create institutions that are strong, institutions where the office holders are competent. And that is precisely why we asked the question whether we should specify in respect of certain offices the composition and the functions, so that we appoint people who are competent and qualified. But that's just the first point. Then how do you ensure the security of tenure of the office holders? Because that's where we normally end up with the problems. If persons don't have security of tenure, then they tend to be malleable in the way they perform their functions, and that's something we do not want. For example, the Office of Auditor General, we know how important the Office of Auditor General is. Should the Auditor General, for instance, be provided the same protection as the Chief Justice gets, or the Superior Court judges get? You can appoint, but removal is going to be extremely difficult. It has to be based on certain criteria and certain standards. So these are all elements that we are looking into as well. And I believe Myla made the suggestion that here in the US you have the Environment Protection Agency. We do actually have in the Gambia a similar body called the National Environment Agency. And whether it functions is a different matter. And I think one thing we all probably can agree upon is that we have a problem of enforcement in our country. We do have that. I mean, I don't think there is anything saying with respect to that subject matter. It is the fact. And that is one of the elements we are going to look at. And it's one of the subject matters we will also be looking at in the context of the report that we will be providing. But for you to be saying things like that is important, because it means that Gambians are aware, and these are not merely going to represent the views of the CRC. Yeah, so we do appreciate the opinions on that. I believe it was Mbaisena Mijalo who raised the issue or the importance of addressing ethics under our laws. I can't agree more. The problem with attitudes is that you cannot legislate for them. You cannot legislate attitudes. What we need to recognize that, I believe somebody made the point here earlier, that we ourselves need to contribute to this process. We need to realize that we should be each other's advisor. We cannot leave everything to the state to perform, because in any way, if you do that, we will be overloading the state to the extent that they become inefficient. So things related to civic education should not be only a matter of national exercise to be conducted by the government, but every citizen has a responsibility in that particular regard. And for you in the diaspora, my challenge to you will be, I think you have a significant role and the advantage to really advance national civic education in the Gambia. You can do that. Contribute. Send a team, liaise with civil society organizations, and promote national civic education. It is important. It is every citizen's responsibility. So you might want to consider that. There was a recommendation that we should have Freedom of Information Act. I think the suggestions we received in our other meetings actually is to create the right under the Constitution for access to information. And that's one of the subject matters we will certainly be looking at. And if we do come to that conclusion based on the opinions we have received, then the Freedom of Information Act becomes a given. But we need to look at it in that context. Banker asked the question, who protects the Constitution? Ultimately, Banker, I agree with you, the Constitution really belongs to the people. So the people are the ultimate protectors of the Constitution. But beyond that, when we embarked on this process, we started on 4 principles: transparency, participation, inclusiveness, and ownership. And ownership is particularly important, which is why this inclusive process of public consultation with governments within and outside of the country is particularly important. Because ultimately what we hope will happen is that the draft constitution, once it's prepared and is endorsed at the referendum, will actually be owned by Gambians. Everybody will see himself or herself with the constitution, whether you made it into the constitution or not. So long as you participated in it and you are using that platform to certainly participate. So yes, that needs to be done. I think it will be an overreach bank, I can say this, that the Constitution should make specific provision that people can demonstrate and to protect the Constitution. I think we need to, there are laws by which we can achieve that, but not necessarily the radical way, but can I go a long way anyway. Then the question was also asked whether there will be a limit to how many persons can run for president. The answer is I don't think the Constitution is the place to provide for that. We do have election laws, and the election laws obviously will look into those. The problem is we need to understand that the new Constitution we are trying to develop is going to be a framework. It is not going to be an institution that is comprehensive on every subject matter. If we do that, we'll end up with the US tax code type of document. And I'm sure all of you are familiar with that. We don't want that. What we want is a comprehensive document that outlines the basic framework that is fundamental to the livelihood and the development and the future of our country. And that is important. So you need to look at that. Already some are telling us the US Constitution has only 32 pages. This Constitution of Senegal has X number of pages. Why is our Constitution so long? We do not have to measure our own Constitution by the number of pages. It's our issues and how relevant those are based on our history particularly, where we need to make sure that we write a Constitution that's not going to be left to interpretation. A Constitution that is clear in itself and that is easily read, easily understood by the average citizen, and mechanics like that. So that is very important. So we will take those into account. But we certainly, I'm sorry, we can't tell you as to whether there will be a limit as to the number of candidates that can run for president. I think already we are hearing quite a number, but we will see whether that will happen at the end of the day. And the last point that was raised relates to the independence of the judiciary. I think, yes, in fact, I know as a fact that, the citizens' opinion of the judiciary, for many years hasn't really been a standing one. And obviously efforts are being made to ensure that that level of independence that every judiciary requires is attained. The judiciary, as we see, is the last bastion for the average publican. It is the last place where you seek redress. And if that is compromised, then obviously the citizens who is that. So in essence, these were some of the points I thought I needed to address. But just to raise 2 other issues. In our meeting in DC, and we didn't get time to respond to those questions. But somebody did ask the question of how can we ensure the integrity of the new constitution, and how can we ensure that what happened to the 1997 constitution doesn't happen to this draft new constitution. And those are important points, and we did promise we will respond to that on our website. But again, the integrity of the constitution, I believe, once it is adopted really, is a matter of protection by all Gambians. The primary responsibility obviously lies with the state, but it lies with the key institutions of government, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. Those are the primary institutions that have responsibility for the protection of the Constitution. But we all have our own responsibility to ensure that that happens the way it should. We do not obviously want a Constitution that's going to be tampered with. And we are not engaging in this process to end up being a waste of time, waste of resources and everybody's energy. I remain to be an optimist. When we started this process, we had certain undertakings by people in authority, and we have no reason to doubt their commitment to keeping those words. So let's track on, but at the same time, obviously, let's pay close attention. Let's pay very close attention to events that occur. But I can assure you, as far as the CRC is concerned, we started on a journey. It has been an independent one, and we have never been interfered with. I can assure you that, and that's the way we intend to continue right to the end of this process. We recognize that this is not about us, the 11 of us. This is really about the country and the future of our children. And we need to collectively ensure that we build integrity into the system, and we ensure that the final product has that level of integrity where we all can be proud to rise up and protect it. I think that is important. I think in a sense that's all I need to say, Mr. Moderator. But the last point, I should say as a closing remark, so I don't need to come back and say anything again, is to say Atlanta, you've done it. I mean, your participation has been of a very quality nature. Apart from the fact that you so far netted the highest attendance in these public consultations by the CRC in the US. You are yet to rival me, and we couldn't even count beyond 400. But anyway, externally, I think you all have done very well. On behalf of my fellow commissioners and the staff of the CRC that are with us, I just wish to thank you all very much from the bottom of our hearts, to tell you how much we really appreciated the fact that you've turned up in a large numbers, but you've also come out and spoken in very frank, in a very frank and objective manner, and I think that is commendable. This is a collective process. We all work this together. If we fail, we all fail together. And really, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm sure I speak for everyone, failure is not an option for us here, especially considering where we have come from and where we want our country to be in the next 100, 200 years. Thank you all very much, and do have a good night.